Ken Robinson. I currently work at Rutgers University as a senior Drupal developer. Technically, my position is application developer, but I do Drupal. I maintain a Git repository for our code. I basically do a lot of different things on the server. I know both. I do mostly back end. I know some front end. I've been in Drupal since Drupal 6.2. Learned it in about 2009, 2010. After being, this will date me, I was an OpenVMS system manager until then. Probably nobody's ever heard of OpenVMS. But I got interested in the internet when it first came out. Had my first rudimentary website up in about 94 with all the blinking GIFs, etc. And when I found Drupal, I just fell in love with it, even though it had the learning cliff. So up until about 3 years ago, I was using Doxel as my platform for doing online, local development, and that was gave me all sorts of problems on the Windows platform. They finally stopped supporting Windows. And that's when I discovered DDEV, and I've been using it ever since, and I love it. So DDEV is great. It is nice. This presentation will focus on how I use DDEV. Your mileage may vary. If anybody is using it differently, let me know. I may be able to change how I use it. Some of the things I hope to talk about is reasons for using DDEV, where it can run, installing it, installing PHPstorm in your local device, etc. You can read that as much as I can. Reasons: it's easy to use. It's also easy to send somebody else your code and let them pull up a DDEV instance and see what you've done. As long as you've configured it and send them in the configuration information, then they can spin up exactly what you've been working on. It's very helpful in that respect. So I can spin up a Drupal site using DDEV in about 5 minutes or less. Yeah, it's a simple one. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's there, and I can start working on it. And it's nice to be able to spin up 5, 6, 7 different instances on my local Windows machine. Eventually it uses up too much memory. I have to shut it down and redo everything and restart. But it does work very, very, very nicely. It can also be used for non-Drupal code. I was investigating Storybook, which is a front-end development area, and I had some questions. I actually got it working, sort of, on my DDEV, and that's now on a back burner, but you can use DDEV. You can put up a regular old PHP website and start modifying it, and it works. You can even change the PHP version. I think DDEV also supports, I know it supports 8.1, it may support 7, I'm not sure anymore. And you can change it almost on the fly. It's nice. Where can DDEV run? It runs on WSL2 under Windows using the Ubuntu Linux, which you can get from the Microsoft Store. You used to have to go out to Ubuntu, download the ISO, and install it from there, but it comes prepackaged and it works fine. I don't know if it works on any other versions of Linux that run under WSL2 because I haven't tried yet. I've heard rumors that it might. It can run on Linux standalone, obviously. If you're running a Linux box, put up DDEV and you're off and running. It has containers and you can run multiple versions. It runs on the Mac. I don't know Mac, so I can't tell you how to do it. I know it does.
Brew.
Okay.
Use brew.
Yeah, like I said, I don't. Last time I worked on a Mac was way before the PowerPC came out. That tells you I've been in Windows ever since. Not that I like Windows, but that's what I use. Okay, now to the meat. There are, installing Docker and DDEV, there's good information on these two websites, how to install it on your WSL2. I'm not going to go into details, because the details in these two websites are very, very, very good. And they've improved over the years. When I first got into DDEV, this presentation is on the Drupal campsite, so you don't have to write down everything. Go to the sessions, and this PDF should be there with clickable links. It's just, when I first started with DDEV, these instructions weren't around. And I really had to play with it to get it working. And last year I got a new this laptop, and I was saying, oh my God, now I have to start up DDEV and everything completely new, and where do I go? I went to these directions to work fine. And I was off and running in, what, a day. So it's really not hard to set up DDEV on your, if you have a Windows machine. I assume it's not hard to do it on a Mac laptop, since, like I said, I've never had a Mac laptop. The other thing is installing I use PHPstorm for my IDE and my debugging. Other people use VS Code. Yes, I have done VS Code, but for some reason I like PHPstorm better. We install it, you don't run it on the Windows side, you install it on the Ubuntu side because it's faster, much faster. DDEV uses something called Docker to do its containers. There's a Docker desktop that runs on Windows. If you run that, DDEV is very slow, and it doesn't work all the time. And they definitely recommend using the Docker on Ubuntu and install PHP on Ubuntu. So it's very fast and it works. Let's see. I think I'm going too fast, but that's okay. Configuring and starting DDEV. DDEV config, then follow the prompts. So, and then once it's config, you do DDEV start. I am going to try something on my DDEV instance here. I have this. Nope, it's not there. Let's try something. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Okay. It says, what's your project name?
We don't see that on the TV.
Oh, sorry. How do I get there? How do I get this up there?
You probably have to go to display settings and do screen mirroring instead of, you're in like two screen mode.
Ah, okay.
I'm not sure where that would be on Windows.
Or, let me see, can I drag this over there?
Yeah, that's in, there you go.
Boom.
Perfect.
And pull up. Okay. I went into a new directory, did DDEV config, and it says project name. I want to take the project name. I want to put it on web. And I want to do a Drupal.
What if you have an existing site that you downloaded from Pantheon, which is my case? How would I
Okay.
Would I still use DDEV config in that case?
You can still use DDEV config. Let me think. I've done it before, and you just do a DDEV config. It will put a config.yaml file out there. I have done it. I don't know if you should do this before you move it over or after, but you can use it. You have to be careful. Yeah.
I can answer that.
What?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So you would, in the directory where you have your downloaded system, because usually there's a top level and then there's a web directory below it. In the top level, you do a Drupal config, rather a DDEV config. It'll see that you already have a code base.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it'll use it.
Yeah.
And it'll know usually what kind of system it is. It'll recognize if it's a Drupal system.
It is very smart. The gotcha is getting your database into the right place. DDEV defaults to a database named DB. There are tools to import a database dump into it. So you just dump your database from Pantheon and import it into your instance. So
Yeah, there's a DDEV DB import, and
yeah,
you just point it.
import DB. I think they flipped the
Yeah, whichever.
Yeah.
And it'll pull the database into the. I think by default it uses MariaDB and it'll pull it right.
Yeah.
Great.
Sometimes it has problems with what the database dump is from where you're bringing it in with the configuration of the database, and there are hints on how to fix that. I've hit that a few times. Now, if we do a DDEV start here, it will start it. It will start it. And it takes a few minutes to figure out what it's doing. Let's shrink this, go back to here. Okay. Okay, back to here. We did a DDEV start. Where's my mouse? I can't find my mouse. There it is. Okay. Installing Drupal, there's a number of... How many of you have installed Drupal from scratch? Okay, a few of you. There are a number of different configurations. Standard one installs Drupal at the doc-root/web, which we all know and love. And if you don't give the composer a version, it will install the latest version of Drupal, which is currently 11. And if you don't want 11, you can tell it to install 10. You also have to require Drush/Drush, or else you can't do anything on DDEV, really. You can, but Drush makes it a lot easier. Those are what I use most of the time. I'll let you take the picture before I move it. And there's also, if you have to install it not in the web directory, but in the topmost directory, you can do that. You just don't tell it when you do the DDEV config that the doc root is web. You just tell it it's the current directory. I have found this, I use cPanel for my own sites, and for whatever reason their doc root is not, it's just in the public HTML. I've seen reports on how to fix that, but they've never worked for me. So I do this, it creates it correctly, but you have to tell it to use the legacy project, not the recommended project, because it does a few different things to make the current directory hardened, they call it. And it does work fine. And the last one is Drupal CMS, which is a new great thing that people are using, or trying to get us to use. This one, you create project Drupal CMS, you don't have to require Drush because it's in the package. So when you do the Drush SI, which is site install -y, the Drush is already there, so you don't have to install it. I discovered this the other day when I was playing with Drupal CMS for the first time. And to do a site install, you do a Drush SI -y. There's some other things you can add on the SI, like site email, site admin name, password if you want to put a password. But it's very nice to do. Okay. Drupal CMS takes some getting used to it. I like the dashboard. I don't like the admin theme. Some people love it. It's Gin. I don't like it personally. Maybe I'll get used to it. But it's a different look and feel than normal Drupal. They're trying to do it so it looks more WordPressy. So it's more accessible to regular people who don't like learning glyphs. Now what? Once you have the site after the Drush SI, it comes out with username and password, and you have to click on it to log in. Drush ULI, that says log me in as the admin user. It was originally said you forgot your password, you can log in and change your password, but just use Drush ULI, it gets you onto the site, and it works. And from there you can use the admin to do stuff. PHPstorm for debugging. This, on my system, typing PHPstorm dot, which means do it from the current directory. This, oops, I didn't want to do that. If you know Linux, $2 null, and that, and the and sign, make sure none of the crappy error messages that PHPstorm thinks you want to see come out. What this does is gets it going on your local Ubuntu instance, not on Windows. So it's reasonably fast. I've seen it slow down every once in a while. There's a debug. I don't know if I'll be able to get it up on here or not, but when you bring up PHPstorm, there is the toolbar up top, and there's this little bug which is hard to see, which usually has a tiny little red X on it. If you don't click on that, you can't do debugging. So you click on that, you enable or disable xdebug via DDEV. There's also a terminal window within PHPstorm where you can type these commands. And you set the breakpoints where you want to look at stuff. It's very nice to see what's going on. I know before I knew xdebug, I used to do the old-fashioned way: put mail program, put what I want to see in a temporary array, mail it to me with a print R, and then with the line number, and then figure out how these things happened. With xdebug, you can put a breakpoint in your code, look at everything as it's going on, and say, oh my God, look at this, it's not setting what I think it's setting here. Why is it not happening? And you look at your code and say, oops, I made a typo. Yeah, it's not a typo that breaks your PHP code, but it's a typo that doesn't let you do what you thought you were doing. It's very nice. And then, the other thing is, let's say you put a breakpoint in a function which you think is going to be called, and it doesn't get called. And you have to figure out why. So you keep on going back up your stack to figure out why you didn't get called there. You put other breakpoints in, refresh your screen and see if it works. It's a very good, I think you can do the same thing in VS Code, but like I said, I don't use VS Code, so I can't tell you. Other people have and love it, but that's their prerogative. Like I said, this is what I use. Another way of debugging, I don't know if anybody, how many people have used Drush, PHP:/CLI. That starts up your Drupal site and gives you prompts on the screen. And you can type in structures, do something, see what a structure looks like, change the structure, and do some coding on the fly, as it were. This comes in handy when you're trying to set config stuff. You can type in the code that you want to put in your program manually into this and see if it works. And then if it does work, then you transfer it to your real program and see that it actually works in the program too. I used it extensively when I was trying to modify config stuff. UA knows the config problems we ran into last year. So we had to go in and modify configs. Unfortunately, this system we're using right now doesn't use config management, so it makes it difficult to change configs. DDEV describe gives you the different URLs for DDEV, what you can access. One of which is MailPit. If you're doing email from your Drupal site, you can bring up the MailPit. It comes up in a different, you click on the URL, it comes up in your native browser even. And if you send an email from your DDEV instance, that will intercept it, and you see the email on your screen. It doesn't go out to the world. So if you're sending emails trying to debug something, or you're even having something in your code which will eventually send emails out to other people depending on what you do, use MailPit. It intercepts all the emails, and you can see what you're sending. And when you think you're sending HTML email and it comes out as text, you know you have a problem somewhere. So it's a very good tool for debugging what your program is, what you think your program is supposed to do. I started using the ECA module to do some emails depending on what's going on in your code. And it wasn't doing what I thought it should be doing. So the mail pit came in very handy to see what the emails, where they were coming from, and who they were going to. And it was very handy for debugging. Now, this is another one. DDEV snapshot will take a snapshot of your database and put it in the .ddev directory area. So you can take a snapshot of your database, do some stuff. If you completely wipe out your site for some reason, you do a DDEV snapshot restore and restore it back to what you had. You can also put it, if you're using Git to keep stuff and other people share it with other people, you can put this snapshot in your Git. So if somebody comes along, clones the Git repository, they get the snapshot, they can restore the snapshot and be off and running exactly where you left it. It's very, very, very handy. Yes?
So with snapshot restore, going back a step, you had mentioned that besides Drupal, you can do other things with DDEV.
Mm-hmm.
What are those other things, for example, and would snapshot restore
Well,
help you with those
snapshot
things?
restore only restores the database.
Well, let's say can you use this for WordPress?
Sure. If it has a database, you can use it. It doesn't restore code, it just restores database. So it's very handy. Even if you had, let's say, a standalone PHP program which uses a database, you can take a snapshot of the database at some point in time. You can have more than one snapshot too. If you name them all correctly, you know which one you want to restore. It timestamps them, but still, it's very handy. And there is a way to delete the snapshots too, because they do take up space. And it's not a normal database backup. I tried to restore one once. It didn't work from outside of DDEV. So it's not a standard database backup. I'm not sure what they do, but it's not a standard database backup. There's another one which I didn't put in here. If you want to use PHP admin, MySQL admin, I forget what the name of it is, but they do now have it with DDEV, so you can look at your database, and you can use it to make dumps out. So other than the DDEV export DB, DB export DB does a MySQL dump to a file. So
There's also, there are hooks for SQL Ace.
yeah. Well, I don't use any other databases, so I'm sure.
SQL Ace is another tool for
Okay. Like I said,
working in the data.
this is what I use, so this is what I know about. And I'm learning about it every day. I learn something new with DDEV. The resources, you can't see this too well, but there's the docs on Drupal. There's the docs. DDEV, their main support area, there's one on Slack, but they like you to use their Discord chat area. The one in Slack is in the Drupal Slack. So, but the Discord one, they are very responsive. I put a question out there, and almost immediately I got a response back.
There's also a documentation site out there. It's ddev.readthedocs.io,
Okay.
and that's got all the.
You know, if you go out to ddev.com, I think you have the links. Their documentation is one of the best ones I've ever seen for an implementation like this. Drupal is pretty good, but DDEV is, I think, even better. When I was trying to figure out Storybook, their documentation is not too good. Their documentation is they're assuming you know what you're doing. Even they have a few examples, which the other one which I'm having problems with now is CK5. I mean, Drupal trying to write my own plugin. Their documentation is horrible. They assume you know what you're doing before you get to the documentation, which is not true. So it's a very, I like DDEV. I have it obviously for work. I write my own, I have a number of my own Drupal websites running out in the world. I use it for that now. I had a number of Drupal 7 sites I had to convert. I had quite a few Drupal 8 and 9 sites, which I migrated to Drupal 10 and put them all under DDEV in Git. So now if I have to update one of them, I go into my DDEV, update it, push to my Git, go to my site, pull it down, and I'm there. So it's helpful. And it makes Drupal development easier. Not completely easy because you still have to know Drupal. So it's definitely easier. And here's my contact information. You can get me at my Rutgers email. You can get me at my regular Gmail. And Drupal.org, I'm Ken RBNSN. You might wonder where RBNSN comes from. Back in the early days of my first real job, I was a COBOL programmer, and the system they were using for the username had to be 5 characters long. Their algorithm was take the last name and strip out the vowels. If it was longer than 5 characters, they truncated. If it was less than 5 characters, they put X's on the end. If you take my last name, which is Robinson, and strip out the vowels, you get RBNSN. I fell in love with it. I've been using Ken RBNSN ever since then. I have rbnsn.com, which is my main website. I have Ken RBNSN at AOL, at Yahoo, at Gmail, obviously. Every once in a while I have to add a number onto it, so it's not quite there. I did find one other person using a similar email, and he was getting, people don't get the RBNSN correct a lot of times. They leave out the first N or leave out the S or leave out the last N. He was getting some of my emails with the typos, so he started forwarding to me. Eventually, he wanted the domain rbsn.com, which I graciously gave to him. I had originally gotten it for my forwarding. So it's a unique, even now I tell people my email and they get it wrong every time, even if I spell it slowly. At Rutgers, I couldn't use it because of their way they create email addresses. This is my external email address, kenneth.robinson73 at rutgers.edu. There's another one, KSR25, which is my net ID. If you're wondering where the 73 comes from, that's the year I graduated from Rutgers. So I've been around a while, not working at Rutgers the whole time. I graduated, undergraduate 73, graduate in 79, going part-time, and started working full-time consulting, and got the job at Rutgers 8 years ago. Had my first interview at the New Jersey Drupal camp 8 years ago. So networking works, and knowing how to talk about what you do works. And if you're wondering if I'm nervous talking up here, I was at the beginning, but once I got going, it's fine. Back in the early days of my jobs, I had to do a presentation in a classroom about this size with about as many people in it. And I had a half-hour time slot, and I had 23 slides, and I finished in 5 minutes. And ran out of the room because I was so nervous. I joined Toastmasters in 1991, learned how to speak in public. In 1999, I gave a presentation at the same conference called So You Want to Give a Technical Presentation. I had like 35 to 40 slides. I spoke for an hour. And everybody came up to me, how can you do this? I said, you speak, you don't worry about what people are going to talk about. I've been in rooms with 400 to 300 people and spoken fine. It's not hard. Try it sometime. Of course, I've been coming to this Drupal camp ever since they started, and every time after the camp, I said, I should give this talk. I finally gave a talk. Now I'll give more. Okay, that's it. Any questions, comments, etc.? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, one more. Since you're using Docker, how much management, if any, do you have to do for Docker?
None. DDEV takes care of all the management. The Docker is within the Ubuntu. It's not in Windows. I've rarely touched Docker. Every once in a while, yeah, I get a glitch. I have to change some of the networking addresses, and I go to somebody and say, help, what do I do here? And they give me some commands, I type them, and it works. I don't know Docker. So, it's very nice. DDEV takes care of 90%, 99% of the stuff.
If for any reason you can't use Docker, like my last employer, we weren't allowed to use Docker because as a commercial place, they would have had to buy a license, so we were using open source versions. There are a lot of alternates, and they all, pretty much all of them work with DDEV, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Unlike, there are other systems that are very tied to Docker. This is not.
DDEV, try it, you'll love it.
It's worth noting that DDEV's kind of he runs the project now is Randy Fay, who was a long-time Drupaler, and he kind of moved into that when he was at Commerce Guys, and then they spun DDEV off as a separate thing. It's now a foundation that does strictly for maintaining DDEV.
The response on Discord is wonderful. They really help you get over your problems. You know, I've posted twice, and each time they've come back and said, here's what you have to do.
It's also worth noting that you can run multiple DDEV instances at the same time. So
yeah.
If you want to run, for example, if you have a Drupal 7 site that you want to migrate into Drupal 10 or 11, you can run both of them at the same time. And then it's just another Drupal site that you're importing from to do the migration. So
even in Windows, I use the Windows terminal that lets you put up different tabs of different instances into Ubuntu. I had one time 5, 6, 7 different ones running at the same time. Eventually my Windows crashed, but it ran out of memory. So you do have to watch that if you're running Windows. You don't have that. I didn't have that much memory on my old machine. So, but it's wonderful. It's a very nice system. Like I said, I used to use Doxel, and I ran into all sorts of problems with it, especially when they stopped supporting Windows. So, before that, I used XAMPP. I used VMware occasionally, but this blows them all away. I think that's it. If nobody else has any other questions, we'll give it a call today. Thank you.
Thank you.